Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, the title of today's video is Asmithlevin and Natalie Webster face off because we are at war and we're gonna do battle in the public arena. Let's introduce today's challenger, Natalie Webster.
I'm ready, Asmithlevin.
All right, for anyone not yet familiar, you can find Natalie's channel at Scientology Life After a Cult, where she does daily recaps of everything in the SPTV universe and beyond. Okay, so we had a couple different visions of what we might do in this video, but let's start out with what it seems like some people expect us to start out with, which is it seems like you and I might have different takes on the Emily Armstrong, Linkin Park, Scientology, Danny Masterson scandal that is rocking the music industry right now. And I'm not quite sure what our different takes are. I know what my take is, but what's your take? Let's start out with yours, and then we will battle it out.
Yeah, because I've had some interesting feedback and comments like, oh, it's interesting that you and Aaron don't see eye to eye on this. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And I think it's because of this, because I have voiced on my live stream when I've talked about Emily Armstrong and this whole Linkin Park thing, that I have a hard time. Like, I don't hate on her, that I want her to have success because I see this cadet who was neglected and victimized in Scientology. Even though she grew up, she's still responsible for the actions she took in terms of, harassment at the Masterson trial and supporting him for that moment in time. It doesn't take away from that, but my approach has kind of been, I've had a hard time hating on her for it because I understand how strong the mind control is. And that's kind of like been my take on it, is she needs to take responsibility and take a stand. I would love her to denounce or disavow Scientology, or fine, if you're going to be a Scientologist and stay there, then say, you know what, this is my religion. I'm a Scientologist and this is what I support and believe in.
Totally. I also feel like I don't hate on Emily. I do want her to succeed. I think it's incredible that someone who was a pack rancher is now the lead singer for Linkin Park.
Yes.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I also would like to see her use that platform in a way that does not allow young people, young women, young gay women to go, if Emily Armstrong is a Scientologist, then it must not be that bad. I might even be a little interested in it. And I do see Emily more as a cadet, a pack rancher who was neglected, which is abuse, neglected and abused as a child, just like that is how I see her, which is why I think it is disgusting to see her also stand by and not, let me try to be as accurate with my words as possible.
Take your time.
Well, because I don't know that I want to use the word complicit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, she's not being honest with the audience. She's not being honest with the fans.
And let me ask you a follow-up question to that. When you say she's not being honest, so do you think that by not saying that she's a Scientologist who doesn't support mental health, or she's just trying to maintain not losing her family, so she's not going to say anything, but she's not an active Scientologist, like, do you think it's the not saying is lying because you're not saying? And it's this whole thing of, how do you sing songs written by, Chester, and dealing with those issues when you don't actually believe in it? Or does she believe in it and she just can't say? Is like, which part do you think is the lie?
So it's interesting because we don't actually know exactly where she stands, and depending on where she stands would determine which is the lie exactly. Yeah. So is it that she's a true believing Scientologist and she doesn't believe in depression and she doesn't believe in mental health and she doesn't believe in therapy or counseling, and she's lying by not saying that. It would be a lie of omission because she knows she knows that would be important information for the fans. She knows it would harm her reputation, her standing in the Linkin Park community. She knows that. So it's a lie of omission, and it would be relevant. Like, it's not like she's lying about something that should be private. That's relevant information. Okay. Yeah. In my opinion, at least.
I agree.
Or is it that she actually is 3/4 out of Scientology, doesn't give a damn about it, would never get any more auditing, would never take any more courses, would never show up to a CCHR event, would never let herself be put on the celebrity mag, would like to apologize to Danny Masterson's victims, but is afraid to. And so if I try to think this thought all the way through, if that's really where she stands, but she can't even bring herself to say that, is it fair to call that a lie? I think if that's where she actually stands, it's not the fans she's lying to, but it does allow Scientology to continue to use her as a propaganda tool. Mm-hmm. And I guess perhaps the longer I'm out of Scientology, the more perhaps I'm a little desensitized to the concerns that I myself had when I was under the radar. And there were certain people, for example, Tony Ortega, who were trying to force me out from under the radar before I was ready. And I remember how that felt. And perhaps I've become a little bit desensitized to that as time has gone on. But I guess when we're in a community of people who've already sacrificed everything and lost everything, it is a little hard to continue to have sympathy for people, especially people who are in positions of power. So like, I don't see Emily Armstrong as, oh, I couldn't possibly actually publicly apologize to Danny Masterson's victims because I would not be able to speak to my mom again. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of people out here who can never speak to their mom again as well. You're a rich, famous rock star. Are we really going to make all the exceptions in the world for you so that you can once every other week speak to your mom who works directly for David Miscavige? I'll be honest, that seems ridiculous to me, but I'm not her, but that's why I only speak for me. I don't claim to speak for her. And I guess the stakes are higher. I mean, it's the same reason without making a direct equivalency here. It's the same reason I think it's perfectly okay to criticize Tom Cruise every day of the year. Like, the stakes are higher. Tom Cruise is someone that Scientology even claims has introduced 1 billion+ people to Scientology. So the ship has long since sailed to feel sorry for Tom Cruise or see him as a victim, even though we certainly could if we wanted to. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on when that ship sails. And it's not that there's only one answer. There's not just one answer. There's not just one right opinion.
Yeah.
The fact that the stakes have just gotten so much higher and that Emily Armstrong is now the lead singer for one of the most famous bands in the world. And she is 100% being used by Scientology as a propaganda tool, as a recruitment tool. It's perfectly fair to hold her feet to the fire and I just think it's fair. But I don't hate her at all. I mean, I couldn't even say that I dislike her. I don't know her at all. I've never heard anything negative thing. I've never heard any negative things about her. Yeah. And yeah, so
with Tom Cruise, yeah, I feel with Tom Cruise that it's different. It's a different situation because he has outright spoken, I'm a Scientologist. Because of Scientology, if you get into an accident, only a Scientologist can help you. He has been very active in promoting that, in having volunteer ministers tents on his movie sites and things like that, in saying the crap he did about Brooke Shields and women with postpartum. Like, Tom Cruise has pretty much created a situation where it's very obvious what he believes and where he stands and his arrogance about it. With Emily, she's not said that I'm aware of anything along those lines. And I agree with you. It's a kind of a sticky situation. And I think that as ex-Scientologists and as for former Sea Org members, we have a different point of view about it because, to your point, how, when you said that when you were kind of being forced to come out for being under the radar and what that felt like, that mental struggle of, okay, if I do this, this is a situation of what I could lose. When I decided to leave Scientology, it took me 2 years. I couldn't speak my truth. I couldn't talk about it because I needed to make sure I got my daughter out and then I got my mom out. And but I think the sticking point with Emily Armstrong is kind of what you were saying, that by not saying anything, you allow Scientology to use you as an example. I mean, Tom Cruise went on a date with Shakira, and Scientology tried to hold her up as, oh, she doing Dianetics now.
Did they really go on a date?
Yeah.
For realsies?
They went to some, you can Google it. There's pictures of them at was it a race or was it something? It was like,
like an F1, maybe an F1 thing or something.
It was something. But remember, that was when the Hollywood Testing Center, when Scientology Audit Streets LA started showing up and the other live streamers, and people would go in, they were told that, oh yeah, I mean, Shakira uses this celebrity uses this. And I think that is what they're going to be doing, because the everyday Scientologist and staff member believes Emily Armstrong is a Scientologist in good standing, because she is, but that she's not in disagreement with Scientology. And so they're going to use that to recruit, which I think from our point of view is more of the sticking point. Whereas if you look at it from the viewpoint of being a fan of Linkin Park, it's about, hey, your values don't align with this music.
Exactly. And another thought that I had on this is that, this is a very small community of, Scientologists and former Scientologists.
Mm-hmm.
And, when Leah Remini, before she officially left Scientology, when she actually started to have serious concerns and wanted to start getting to the truth of some matters, she was in touch with big bad former Scientologist SPs. And, she was actually, even before she was officially and publicly out of Scientology, she was very much privately in touch with people trying to find out what the hell's going on. Same thing for Lisa Marie Presley. Mm-hmm. And, the fact that, just for example, like Emily Armstrong's mother was one of the executives locked up in a prison at the International Management Base. Mm-hmm. It's very possible that Emily never knew about that.
Oh, no way does she know. No way does she know.
But now that it's out there, though,
mm-hmm.
Does she not care whether the organization and the group that she's a part of is the type of organization that's run by a guy that would lock her mother up in a prison at the International Management Base? And if she doesn't care about that, doesn't have the intellectual curiosity to go, the truth of this matter would be important to me, then I just go, she's a public figure. She's going to be used as a propaganda tool. It's sort of totally fair, in my opinion, to go, this is what you're supporting. Ignorance of that is an excuse to the extent, ignorance of it is an excuse up until the point when you could easily find out the truth of these things. And if you're not finding out the truth of these things, then how am I supposed to continue to make excuses for you? Emily Armstrong knows how homophobic Scientology is. Yes. I cannot, it's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of someone who's living as an openly gay person and connected to and supportive of a homophobic organization like Scientology. Add on top of that the child abuse that she's aware of. Add on that the fact that her mom was locked up by David Miscavige. Mm-hmm. And I just go, I don't know I don't know what's better. If she's still in and a true believer and is covering it all up, or if she actually is out, but completely afraid to ever admit it. And I mean, I guess it's better if she's actually out. But either way, it's like, hey, look, it's easier than ever to speak out publicly today. Yeah. She's in the driver's seat. Leah Remini was able to get her entire family out of Scientology because Leah was in the driver's seat. If Emily Armstrong wanted to, on her own terms and at her own speed, organize things to officially and properly leave Scientology, one thing that she might do is contact her mom or the Office of Special Affairs or RTC and say, you get my mom out of INT and in my house living with me by the end of next week, or I'm speaking publicly to the press about Scientology. Like, Emily is in the driver's seat. And so I mean, I don't know. I could easily make arguments for both sides. And in fact, in my videos, I sort of have tried to make arguments for both sides on what would be preventing her from speaking out, but then what she could also do anyway. I'll just give you an example. The easiest thing she could do is just do what Beck did and pretend that she's never been a Scientologist. Yeah, it was did Beck get declared? No. Did David Campbell and his mom's got some hippie name that I can never remember. Did David Campbell and his stepmom have to disconnect from him? No. Did his sister disconnect from him? No. Is he declared? No. Mm-hmm. He's like, a Scientology was kind of my parents' thing. It was never really my thing, and I'm not associated with the organization. Emily could easily say that. Yeah. Because to be honest, from most of the people that I hear from, it doesn't really sound like Emily was, after she managed to escape joining the Sea organization. It doesn't ever sound like she was one of these people who was on course a lot and getting a lot of auditing. But it's like the entire membership of the band Dead Sarah are Scientologists. I mean, I don't know. When do we stop making excuses? I don't know.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the question and the thing. And where I pretty much land on it is when I think about that struggle, that internal struggle of, I want to leave, this doesn't really align with who I am, but I will lose, like, if I don't know what her relationship with her mom is like, it sounds like they have a close relationship. I mean, on an almost daily basis, or at least a few times a week, I call for David Miscavige to kick Gail Armstrong out of the Sea organization because she is a potential trouble source and she should be kicked out. And that is my new approach with it, because I struggle. I have moments where I feel, as an ex-Scientologist, as an ex-Sea Org member who went through a ton of crap to leave and then be harassed beyond that and work through those things, that it's kind of like, well, what makes your neck not so precious? But then on the flip side of that, and this is kind of where I end up landing, is it's so personal. And I think it's only something that either somebody else who's been in a similar situation in terms of family in Scientology or the Sea Org, and what that means to lose that. Because there's her sister too, right? The sister is full-blown doing those videos for Scientology.
That's right. Some thoughts on that. It is so personal, but she's also now one of the most high-profile public figures in the music industry.
Yeah.
And since when does anyone get a pass on people diving into your personal lives? Look how you and I, compared to Emily Armstrong, are nothing. And look how we are every day ridiculously and viciously attacked. And all we're trying to do is expose a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. Like, we're attacked for our personal lives, and we're not even in the closet supporters of Scientology. So it's like, it is personal, but it's also, it is personal, but she's also so public. And that's why the stakes for Scientology and about Scientology are so much higher.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say about that is, I do primarily see Emily as a former cadet, but the other people that I see as former cadets are the ones that Scientology sat down and recorded interviews with, calling Miriam Francis and Sina Kamula liars for being victims of child SA. When at least one of those former cadets who did that video was herself a victim of child SA, and she's doing videos calling Miriam and Sina liars. And so I guess what I'm really saying there is, I don't think being a former cadet gives you a pass. Especially when the stakes are this high. But I don't hate Emily. I don't want her to be canceled. I don't want her to be fired. I almost want her to be forced to at least say what Beck did, just to calm the noise down. Just say, oh, I'm not associated with Scientology anymore. That was my parents' thing. Okay, that's a start. Mm-hmm. That's a start. Because I'll tell you what, I believe Beck was lying when he said he's never been a Scientologist, but I certainly believe he's not an active Scientologist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and to do it so much in a public way, to have her profile so elevated right now. I can't even imagine. You want to, I try to think about what that might be like. You're living your dream. This is a band you looked up to, and given your background and where you came from, to get to that point of success is something that, and we both agree on that like it's worth celebrating, but it doesn't give her a pass. And I would agree with that. I do not think being a cadet, being an ex-Scientologist, being an ex-Sea Org member gives anybody a pass for especially what she's done in terms of showing up for Masterson, the alleged one time, but harassing the Jane Does, not saying anything. I don't think she knows about her mom and what happened to her mom in the hole, because there's no way her mom would be allowed to tell her. I
But
mean,
I'll tell you what she does know. I'll tell you what she would know, though, Natalie. She would know. She would go, oh, was that couple years when I wasn't able to talk to my mom when I wanted to? There would at least be some data points for her to go,
yeah.
well, I didn't know that that's what happened, but there was that period where my mom was on a special project for a year and a half or 2 years, and wow. I wonder if that really could be what these people are saying about being locked up in a prison. And maybe maybe it should matter to me whether my mother was locked up in a prison by the leader of this group. Maybe that should matter to me.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that if she knew the truth, I think that it would make a big difference for her. I can also see her mom even lying about it, though, and saying, no, that didn't happen, because what does Scientology do? They try to discredit people, like us and other people who are out there shedding a light on the abuses of Scientology, on what happens, on the harmful practice of disconnection, on what really happens in the Sea organization. So if she knew, I feel like it would be a game ender. I mean, I can only think about my own experience. I kept a secret, and I've shared this with you and the audience, for 20 years when I had my essay, and the Sea organization and Scientology covered it up, and I kept it a secret because that was my get out of jail free card to leave the Sea Org. They told me, we will let you leave the Sea Org without having to do the routing form, the security checks, if you never speak of this. You cannot talk about it. You cannot go back to the org and talk about it. Nothing. And I did for 20 years. But the day I told my mom, who was she was on operating Thetan level 7 in Scientology, the day that I told her, and she already had some things happening to her where she was having not feeling great about Scientology and expressing doubts, that had been going on for a couple of years. But when I told her the truth about what happened to me and how the Sea Org covered it up, I didn't see a doctor. I didn't get any counseling. It was never addressed. I was made to keep it a secret. That was the day my mom said, I'm done. That is all. And she told me, if you would have told me this 20 years ago, we would have left. Now, personally, even though my mother said that, I don't fully believe that. I would like to believe it, but 20 years, I don't know. I mean, you never really know. That's the thing. But
Right.
I wonder if it would make enough of a difference for Emily, if she, or maybe even people who she trusts, where she might hear this information from, which is why I like to talk about her mom being in the hole, because maybe somebody will tell her, because we know Emily herself is likely not watching, but you never know. I was under the radar, watching everything, reading everything.
Right. Okay. I got another thought on this. So there is probably, Scientology is probably one of the most notorious, criticized, and hated cults active in America right now. Partially because of the high profile due to people like Tom Cruise. And even when Karen Bass and I forget who was running against her for the mayor of LA. Was a guy named Rick Caruso. When Karen Bass and Rick Caruso were running against each other for mayor, there was some event where some politician in LA said something like, there's one thing that brings politicians from both sides of the aisle together, and that is that politicians on both sides of the aisle all know that Scientology is a destructive cult. Okay. Considering what a unifying force Scientology is in that regard, you also have to kind of go, did they not expect this? So did they not think that they could take someone who was born and raised in Scientology, grew up as a pack rancher, Both parents still work in the Sea organization. The mother works for David Miscavige, and they were going to allow her, because you know that OSA had to be involved in this decision. I mean, I think that's without question. They were going to allow her to be elevated to one of the most high profile positions in the music industry. And we're all supposed to not talk about Scientology and Emily because it might make her sad, or she might be struggling with the relationship with her mom. That's fucking insane. Like, they did not expect that this was going to be a lightning rod of criticism for Scientology and child abuse and trafficking. And we're supposed to soft pedal it because of Emily's feelings. I have a hard time accepting that.
Because it's so high profile. Would you feel differently if Emily wasn't a celebrity or in that position? Because I think
Yes.
that's the whole, and that is kind of the changing point. That's kind of the shift, I think, in that point of view, is by nature of her being so high profile, like you said, the risk is so much bigger of Scientology using this as a recruitment tool.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to end well. But what do you think about this? Let's say Scientology, of course, will use it. Or, I mean, they use people who aren't even in Scientology and claim that they are for clout. So there's no way they're not going to use Emily Armstrong for clout. If it were, if it were a totally different situation and she wasn't a celebrity, I think it would be a different thing. We would have more, because there's no effect that she's going out and creating where she could potentially recruit all these people.
Well, that's right. I mean, to answer your question, yeah, if she was still, have I ever done a video about Emily Armstrong when she was just the lead singer of Dead Sarah? By the way, Dead Sarah has been a very successful band. It's how Linkin Park ever even found out about Emily Armstrong. They've been on tour with some of the biggest bands in the industry. Emily Armstrong and Dead Sarah have been successful for a long time. I've never done a video about them or mentioned her name because I could not care less. Most people didn't know who she was.
Yeah. And
it's like, do you know what someone who's not in Scientology is allowed to say? They're allowed to say they're not in Scientology. So her silence and her refusal to say Danny Masterson's name, her refusal to specifically mention Danny Masterson's victims, is just evidence that she still is in and she still does support it. And I'm sorry, if you're still in and you still support it, the criticism is valid. The criticism is valid. You're one of the most famous people now in the music industry, and we're supposed to not criticize you because we're supposed to be worried about your feelings. I'm sorry. You're in Scientology. You support Scientology. You're in good standing. Your mom works for David Miscavige. We're allowed to criticize you for not taking a stand against this type of abuse. That's how I feel.
Well, I think it's that way with celebrity, even take away the topic of Scientology. If it were just about some other type of injustice or abuse and a celebrity knew something about it and wasn't speaking out against it, or was thought to have affiliation with, but wasn't making that clear delineation that no, this doesn't align with who they are, the stakes are higher. So there is more of that expectation. And I think has been my struggle, where I go back and forth. On one hand, I'm like, girl, you are reaching so many people to allow this idea or let Scientology use you as clout to recruit for Scientology. It's going to happen. They're going to try. But then on the flip side, it's when I put my head back into that mental space of being under the radar as a Scientologist and not being able to speak freely about it, was, for me, one of the most miserable times of my life. Because the more I realized that this isn't who I was and this isn't what I want, but I had to still go through the actions purely at a practical blackmail because of losing my family, I pretty much lost all of my friends except the ones who left with me. It is a lot to weigh. So I feel I can still have a desire and expectation, and I'll still talk about it and bring it up. But I heavily also feel on the flip side the importance of, with a victim of Scientology, it's so much in your own time. Like, we all come to that place where, you talk to people too, Aaron. I talk to people who are either recently leaving, recently left, or under the radar and want to leave. It is mentally messes them up.
It is, but you know what the difference is there? we're talking to those people.
Exactly.
I'm in touch with people that certain people would be shocked that these people are out of Scientology. I'm in touch with people who are like, I'm just waiting for my dad to die and I'm going to be fucking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be telling my channel. I'm going to tell my story everywhere on all the channels.
Yeah.
I understand that position. That's not Emily Armstrong.
Yeah.
Because if it were, we would know, because this community is tiny.
Yeah.
And there's one other counterpoint that I'd like to make on this. Emily Armstrong is not someone who's lived in a fucking Scientology cult cave and has just been taken out of that cave and made the lead singer of Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Emily Armstrong has as many friends, contacts, colleagues, whatever you want to call it, in the real world who've never been in Scientology, who hate Scientology, who would spit on Scientology. She's connected to as many of those people as she is, more of those people than she is to Scientologists. She's been in the music industry, touring the world. She's not just some newbie.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It'd be like Juliette Lewis. Like Juliette Lewis has been in the movie industry and the music industry for 30 plus years. If she were to leave Scientology, it wouldn't be like, oh my God, that was so unbelievably brave of you. Like, what is she sacrificing? People who don't value her enough that they would disconnect from her just because she's not in Scientology. That's what she would be sacrificing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know that's difficult. We know that's hard, but we've all been through it. And so, like, you know, I guess in my case, I was under the radar for a number of years, giving information to Mike Rinder, giving information to Marty Rathbun, giving information to Tony Ortega. And, you know, I was at a point in my life where, you know, me and Heather were actively trying to figure out how we were going to keep my family together, her family together, keep her job, keep my job. And then somewhere in that process, I had done a work project for a well-known hedge fund manager. And because that project went public, there was an article about me in Forbes magazine. And they asked me about Scientology. And I told the reporter behind the scenes and off the record, oh, hey, no. If you write that I'm out of Scientology, my wife's going to lose her whole family. Like, I can't have you write that. That was private. And he was horrified. He was like, oh my God, really? He's like, I'll put whatever you want. I'll write whatever you want me to write. So he just said that I chose not to comment on my previous involvement in Scientology. Tony Ortega sees this article. He writes a whole fucking blog post trying to blow me up, trying to put me on blast for covering up my involvement in Scientology. I email him. I'm like, bro, I'm the guy.
Wait, was this before or after you were sharing information with him?
Oh, it was long after. He just didn't know exactly who I was.
Got it.
I'm like, dude, I've been the one sending you fucking info for years. Can you not try to blow me up right now? And even then, there was no sympathy. There was no like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Of course. It was almost like, well, now's the time. Now's the time. You need to do it. I'm like, you're not going to fucking tell me what I need to do. Okay. Was I a celebrity? Was I someone important? Was I someone that was going to move the needle on getting people into Scientology or getting people out of Scientology? No. Okay. None of these people. I see some people in the chat that I won't bother naming, you know, trying to be like, maybe Emily's this, maybe Emily's that. We can make excuses for everyone all fucking day long. If I had wheels instead of legs, I'd be a fucking bicycle, but I don't. Okay. So, you know, when you are a public figure, things matter. When Scientology is going to use you in a particular way, things matter. You know, and then you add the Danny Masterson stuff on top of it. And it's like, I'm sorry, all criticism is fair criticism. I choose to believe I've been pretty damn fair in my commentary on Emily Armstrong. But for anyone to even imply everyone should be leaving her alone because she might be going through things at her own speed is like, what? Really? That's that's how you come for a celebrity. But you don't have that same speed when it comes to private Scientologists who you're trying to blow out of the water. I don't want to hear that bullshit. I don't have any patience for it.
Yeah. I think the difference is the celebrity and the influence, the amount of people that she can reach. And I think it said everything when she didn't name in her statement Danny Masterson, when she didn't name the Jane Does specifically. That right there. Do you think that her PR people wrote that statement, or this was something Scientology, PR people or even OSA wrote for her? Like a regular PR person not in Scientology, what is the downside to not taking a hard stand and saying, hey, I did this, it was a mistake, but naming, like that's like you're halfway there. It's why do it at all then? Because you're not actually apologizing. This was a specific situation with a specific set of people. And I think that was the loudest thing she said that put her in the camp of, I'm here to appease Scientology. Because Scientology wouldn't want it said. But if it weren't for Scientology, why couldn't she say Danny Masterson and Danny Masterson's victims, the Jane Doe specifically, being that that's who she screwed over?
Well, the point that you're making is exactly why I personally believe the Office of Special Affairs had to either write or approve that message, because any normal person would have said, you better say Danny Masterson. You better apologize to the victims. Any normal person would have said, I am not going to allow you to make the same mistake that Ashton and Mila made. Don't apologize to all victims of all violence everywhere.
Mhm.
Apologize to the people that are the reason you're having to make this apology.
Yeah.
And I just think only a Scientology PR person would have been like, you are definitely not going to mention Danny Masterson, and you are definitely not going to apologize to those dirty SPs who dragged Scientology into the courts. So, and that's where I go, it makes me have even less sympathy. It's like, come on now. We're supposed to not talk about you because we're supposed to come up with all of our own imaginations about what struggles you might be going through behind the scenes. Fuck off. Just say the same bullshit that Beck said. Scientology was my parents' thing, and as soon as I was old enough, I never really did. Just say that. What's the problem?
Because she's still a Scientologist. I think
Thank you very
what
much.
it is. That is the thing. That is why. That's why she won't name the Jane Does and say Danny Masterson, all of the things. And I think you're right. I think that was an Office of Special Affairs approved response, because take Scientology out of the picture. What does Linkin Park or anybody care if she's naming them? Those are the facts. It's that just was so loud that like, oh girl, you totally are in the hands of Scientology. And what gets me too is I look at her and I go, okay, because I think she identifies as being queer. How? Now we know that, Scientology lets Catherine Bell run around and act like that's not happening because she's a celebrity. Yet in the Sea Organization, as we know, people were punished with interrogations, brainwashing, manual labor because they cared about somebody who was the same sex as them. Because L. Ron Hubbard said over and over again in Dianetics and Science for Survival that they're criminals and sexual deviants. Like that's being said about her. And how does her mother reconcile that then too? Because do you think because what we've heard is it sounds like she's got a decent relationship with her mom. But then
that
maybe
information comes from that information comes from Mitch Brisker. And I mean, I believe that Mitch is accurately representing what he believes to be true. But it's like, I got to be honest, I have a hard time understanding how anyone has a good relationship with their mom when they work at the International Management Base. The fucking cadets didn't even have a good relationship with their parents. How the fuck does Emily Armstrong have a good relationship with her mom who works at the Int Base? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? How is it the cadets who live 20 minutes away from the damn fucking base? I'm sorry to curse so much. How is it that those cadets didn't have good relationships with their parents, but Emily Armstrong has a good relationship with her parent? How does that, how does that even make sense? What does that even mean? Or
how does she have it now when she didn't have it earlier, when they weren't around? Where does her dad, Charlie is her dad, right? Charlie Armstrong?
I forget. It's somewhere in the comments section, but I just forget.
I think it is. Do you know where he's working now?
Mitch says he's a cleaner, but I don't know where he's a cleaner. Is he a cleaner at Gold? Is he a cleaner at
PAC? He was at PAC.
Is he an OSA? Is he an OSA? Oh, you knew him?
Yeah.
Oh.
And if I remember, Emily was like little blonde girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
but
him and his
like,
wife.
yeah. So if he's a cleaner, and again, this is accurate as of, a few years ago. I mean, Mitch left during COVID, I think, right? Am I wrong?
Mhm.
Um, and so, what was your question? Oh yeah. What's her dad do? Mitch says
Yeah,
he's a cleaner.
yeah. Which I think back then, gosh, I want to say that he worked in treasury maybe for OSA. I don't completely recall. I remember my interactions with him were because I was working in treasury, I think at the time for the CLO, the Continental Liaison Office. And I think was he the one I would get rides to the bank with? There's like other treasury people would try to help each other out in those ways.
So he was OSA West US, not OSA Int.
When I knew him, he was at the PAC base. So he
Yeah.
had to have been West
I
US.
got to tell you, I can't help it. Apostate Alex is in the chat just talking about being fucking nice to people and leading with kindness. Alex, you're such a hypocrite, dude. Your moderator viciously attacks all of the former Scientologists who are considered as being part of SPTV, and you don't say or do a fucking thing about it. So please shut the fuck up about how we should all be nice to Emily Armstrong. You are such a hypocrite. I'm glad you're in Natalie's chat and not my chat, because I'd block your ass right now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the point of having the different opinions and viewpoints on it, because there's so many facets to it. There's so many different pieces to it. I feel like it's messed with my emotions and how I felt about it, and have moved around on it because I have a viewpoint one way as somebody who was in Scientology and an ex-Sea Org member, and I know what I had to stand up to and what I had to go through to leave. And, you know, it's like I feel like it wouldn't be nearly as hard for her, but we don't have all the information or know. And at the same time, I want to have compassion for her. But here's the thing. I think we can have compassion while still holding people accountable, and like, hey, when you have celebrity status and you can influence people, and there's a cult over here that's going to use you for clout to recruit people, we are going to continue to talk about it to try to at least combat that. But it doesn't mean that we don't still care, or we wouldn't be there for her. You know what I'm saying? If she wanted to come on and talk about it or any of that. And I
Yeah.
think that's where people, or of some, think that maybe we don't agree on this, is both things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that because of her celebrity status, that's a game changer. If you're going to be out there not saying anything about this and representing in a way that it's okay and making it cool and you can be gay and be in Scientology, then no, that's not true. So we do need to say something about it.
Yeah. I wonder if people think I've actually crossed the line in harshly criticizing Emily. I hope I'm not just misremembering it. I feel that the thrust of my videos has consistently been, this is why it matters whether Emily still supports this, or whether she is one, or that she is in good standing, or that being in good standing means she can be controlled and manipulated by OSA. This is why it matters. And this is why the fans care. Unless I'm just being, selective memory over here, I have not actually criticized Emily. As far as she's a bad person, or she supports this, or she condones this, or she's complicit in this. Just being a Scientologist does not make you complicit. I mean, I don't actually feel that way. Like we all know what it feels like to continue to be in there, even when you don't really give a shit. It's just easier to go along to get along and not make waves. Like, I'm not one of these people who tries to hold everyone responsible for every bad thing that's ever been done in Scientology. I feel like it does come down to what we've already said, with her hugely high profile as a celebrity now, and given the nature of the material of and the lyrics and the material of the songs of this band, and given the fan base, the fans deserve to understand and continue to have it explained what it really is that Scientology is, what Scientology really supports, how Scientology really abuses children, how Scientology refuses to let members get any mental health care, how many Scientologists have ended their own lives partially because they are absolutely prohibited from getting any mental therapy of any kind other than Scientology. Like, and if you want to be the front man for a band whose songs are about these things, it matters. And that's actually been my only point. I do not want people to hate Emily Armstrong. I do not want her to get fired. I do not want her to get canceled. I want this to be an opportunity to bring into focus the conversations that we have about Scientology every day on our channels. I am not on a campaign to get Emily Armstrong fired. I am proud of the success that she's had, that someone who's born and raised in Scientology has had this level of success. I think it's absolutely freaking amazing. Yeah. And it's also an amazing opportunity to continue to bring into focus and to bring an even bigger spotlight onto the types of conversations that you, I, and a dozen other people have been having on YouTube for a very long time now. So I hope that clarifies my intention. I'm not trying to ruin her life in any way.
No, I think I think we actually completely agree on that and seeing it that way, that there's those two sides to it. And I think it really takes being on that end of being, having been in Scientology and understanding that mindset as well. And I agree. It's something that has to be continued to be talked about. And it's great that in a way, it's bringing awareness to a whole new group of people who are learning about Scientology. And that's my other take on it, is that, well, I don't hate this because it has started a conversation. It's raising awareness about mental health and Scientology's complete lack of, in fact, driving people to the point of unaliving themselves because of things that happen within Scientology and the abuses. It's a game changer, just like with Rebecca Minkoff being on the Real Housewives of New York. Early on when I was like, go, 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 and people like, Natalie, why do you support her? I'm like, because this is going to introduce Scientology abuses to an entire new audience. Bring it on.
Yes. I haven't even had the opportunity to get onto the Rebecca Minkoff topics. And it's one of those things I keep kicking myself, is like, the longer I take to do that video, I feel like the less likely I am to do that video.
Well,
but like you've been on that. You've been on that hot and heavy. And, I literally know her dad. I twinned with him on Academy Level 0 in Los Angeles. Like, I know David Minkoff. I've been dragging my feet on the Whitney Mills stuff. I've been dragging my feet on the Rebecca Minkoff stuff. I have got to get back on the wagon here.
Well, tell me about this thing with the dad. Did you twin with him? You were on it with him at the same time?
We did Academy Level 0 together. We were twins. Yeah. Now, I had already known him previously from Clearwater, because he and his wife, damn it, what's his wife's name? Sue Minkoff. David and Sue Minkoff have been running the annual Say No to Drugs race here in Clearwater, Florida forever. And that's a Scientology sponsored race. And I used to be on the Dianetics running team when I was, back in the late 90s.
Did you wear the little yellow shorts when you were on the Dianetics running team, Aaron?
They were black shorts. I remember the yellow shorts, but I didn't wear those. Some of the SEERG members actually wore those. I have an old photo of me and Jeff Pearlman in our Dianetics running team thing after a 5K. I should show. Did I show you?
When you were at my house, you showed it to me.
Yeah,
we looked at that because we both know Jeff Pearlman.
Yes.
In fact, Jeff Pearlman was key in helping my daughter Shelby make her own decision to leave Scientology. And interestingly, when Shelby came on and you did an interview with my daughter Shelby, you guys were able to connect the dots that Jeff Pearlman was also that person for you, because Jeff Pearlman was a trained auditor in Scientology. And somebody who does technical training is different from somebody who does, like myself, where I just did the auditing side. That was just such an amazing thing to connect the dots on, that Jeff Pearlman's been bouncing around unknowingly or unknowingly, like helping all these people out of Scientology.
I know. And so I'd known David and Sue forever. Plus I knew Max Minkoff and Uri Minkoff. And I knew Silka. Silka Peens is the one who married Max in the Sea Org. I knew Silka before she was even in the Sea Org. I knew Max before he was even in the Sea Org. And now of course Uri runs Rebecca's entire business empire now. But what I didn't know is that the reason David was out in LA is because he was basically in LA serving out his Scientology sentence until he had okay to go back to Clearwater because of the whole Lisa McPherson debacle.
So he was doing his training in LA. not
Yeah,
Florida.
at Asho.
Because he wasn't qualified to be on the base, probably on account of the trouble he got in.
Exactly. He was basically ostracized. It's almost like for him, LA was like his Alcatraz. He was
Totally.
basically banned from Clearwater by Scientology, not by, the authorities or whatever. And him doing his auditor training was part of his amends project. It was part of his program, probably for his ComEv. He didn't tell me that, but you and I know that's most likely the case.
Yeah.
And yeah, we twinned on the entirety of Academy Level 0. I cannot remember why we stopped twinning together after that. It might have been that I was just too far ahead of him because he wasn't on course full time. He was probably on course full time, whereas I was on course full time. And so, yeah, it's amazing. I don't know, it's just another example of how small the world of Scientology is. Like, we all know each other.
Yeah. What do you think about, jumping topics a little bit here, but I'm dying to talk to you about it. What do you think about Lisa Marie Presley's memoir that's coming out? She was writing it. She passed away. There were all these recordings that she did, and Riley Keough, her daughter, finished the book. It's being released, I think, October 8th. And on that same day, there is an interview with Oprah being released where Oprah went to Graceland and interviewed Riley Keough about the book and the book coming out. So all of this is happening on October 8th. And I'm like, okay, what is the deal? So tell me the tea. Do you have any tea on Riley Keough? And what do you think? Do you think they're going to go there with Scientology in this book?
I'll tell you why. I'll put my neck out there. I'll make a prediction at the risk of being proved a fool. Riley is still so totally safe pointed by Scientology. And she doesn't even have the same fucking excuses that even an Emily Armstrong would, because Riley and her mom and her grandma had all left Scientology. And Riley went back because of her friends like Georgie, Serge's sister. Georgie is Serge's sister. And Georgie's like one of Riley's besties. And Riley's another one who she's in the driver's seat. She could leave if she wanted to. She had left. And then she sort of went back. Now, someone, maybe she didn't go back. Maybe she's not on course. Maybe she's not getting auditing. But the fact that Miscavige would even let current Scientologists continue to associate with Riley Keough when he knows damn well Riley and Lisa Marie were working behind the scenes to help take down David Miscavige and Scientology means Riley has been safe pointed again and has been for a lot of years now. So there is, in my opinion, Georgie is Lily's sister, I'm being told. My bad. Oh, Georgie Flores is Lily's sister. Okay, Lily is who Serge used to be married to in the Sea organization. Thank you for that. That's an important distinction. And what was I saying? Okay, I'm predicting that if Riley had, she's the one actually finishing this book and doing the press, and Riley's connected to Scientologists. If Riley says one negative word about Scientology in the press, she's toast. Her friends will have to disconnect from her. And I predict that's why it will not happen. But I would love to be proven wrong.
I think that there is going to be something more about Scientology. I don't know that she's going to go full blown guns blazing about it, because think about it. The amount of loss in that family. She lost her brother who unalived himself. Where the F was Scientology then? Her mother, the struggles that her mom had. Where was Scientology then? Like, where's the win? Where are you seeing people being really helped by Scientology? So I don't know. And I just feel like, they're going to say something.
Oh my God. It's one of these things like, okay, what do you think is going to come up? How do you think it might come up that would not blow back on Riley and her friends?
Well, that's the thing is if I'm Riley, and yeah, you got your friends, but this organization effed over my mother, my brother, my grandmother, my family. F your friends. It's who are you with that level of loss? How could she possibly still side with Scientology or even care about her friends? Maybe she's got other friends. I mean, we all got new friends. I left Scientology. I had to get all new friends.
Right. Well, that's why I'm a little not quite sympathetic for Emily, is because she's got an entire industry of new friends and new friends that have been new friends for probably 10, 15, 20 years now. But so you're hoping that this might be Riley's big coming out party?
I'm telling you, because if Lisa Marie was done with Scientology, she was doing things behind the scenes, right? There are reports that she was like hanging out with John Travolta, talking smack about David Miscavige. So if she really did do these recordings, she recorded an album where a couple of the songs were pretty clear what she thought about Scientology. How do you not honor your mother? You're going to take her book. You cannot tell me, Aaron, that Lisa Marie Presley didn't put some shit about Scientology in that book, and her daughter is not going to show up and take it out and change it. And if she does, I swear to God, the power of Christ needs to compel me, because I will be livid if it comes out that Riley Keough made any changes to that, because Lisa Marie was going to testify in the Danny Masterson trial.
My God, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to keep my prediction on the table just so that we can have a war on this, a battle of the predictions. So I'm confused though, because when Serge recently did tell me that his sister, he was telling me about some connections that his sister has. And I'm just realizing that when he was telling me this, I was thinking about Georgie. I never knew any of Serge's siblings. And now I don't know who the hell his sister is, because I was thinking it was freaking Georgie. Yeah. So that's a separate confusion. I can take that up later.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that she's going to go, like I said, just like full blown attack. Like, there are ways to be honest about it, and, be able to be honest about it without maybe getting into a lot of the nitty gritty. But there's no way there can be a memoir about Lisa Marie Presley that doesn't include Scientology. And how, being her mother put out an album and those songs about it, can she change the narrative on it?
Well, and also Riley's mother, Priscilla, gave her son Navarone permission to come on my channel, or her blessing to come on my channel. And Riley is still connected to Priscilla. But they were also just suing each other, which would not normally be allowed amongst two Scientologists. So what the F is up with that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I think there's more to it with that one. You should have him on again.
Yes, he has said that he would come on again. Oh, I was texting with him just last week. He will come on again.
Yeah, I mean, the book is coming out on the 8th. The interview with Oprah is on October 8th. I think it would be very a good time to kind of have him back on, because even when he was on, I remember seeing that video on your channel. I walked away thinking Priscilla Presley doesn't give two shits about Scientology, really. And she seems to be in a position in her life where, it just doesn't matter. And again, for her, it's like, hello, look at your life. It's like when I looked back, I told you the story about when I was in a mall shooting in 2008 in Seattle. And in that moment, crouched down in the back of a Journey store, I decided to leave Scientology. I wanted to leave. I was having doubts about it. But at that moment, I'm like, I am not dying. And then I just spent my entire life in this cult. I will lose my entire family except for my children, who I knew I could take with me. I was willing to lose my husband. I was willing to lose my mother. Doesn't mean I wasn't going to try to leave with them. That's what I did. That's why it took 2 years. But that, I just can't imagine living the life that they've lived, and the suffering and the pain. And for what? For what? For no help? Lisa Marie, her struggles with addiction, because the solution was Narconon, was Scientology drug rehab. I mean, it's no wonder that there were more issues with that. What was she denied when it came to mental health treatment? What signs were missed? When you're a Scientology family, especially a multi-generational one, as you know, it's like we don't address mental health. It's just not addressed. You're just told you just need to do your next step. Just keep smiling. Don't behave in a way that is unbecoming of an operating Thetan. Stop doing your strip fitness, Natalie. I mean, all the things. The level of control.
If I was in Riley's shoes, I can't even imagine what the loss of her brother Ben meant to her.
Yeah.
And whether, like, if I'm, I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, and having been born and raised in Scientology, and being aware of whether Ben was ever prevented or told, there's not anything wrong with you. Like, I mean, obviously he struggled with mental health issues, clearly, even if only depression, right? Or even if only, and she would know, Riley would know what kind of conversations had ever occurred with Ben, between Ben and Priscilla, or even her and Ben, about whatever struggles he was going through, and whatever help he was told was the only help available to him, and whether he was ever told, don't ever do this, don't ever do that. And I got to tell you, I feel like, depending on what those conversations were, depending on what was happening with Ben behind the scenes leading up to his death, maybe this book is a coming out. Coming out.
Saying. I mean, I think about it sometime. Like, if something happened, if my sister unalived herself directly tied to an experience and things in Scientology, I would burn it to the ground. I would burn it to the ground. I would put I should stop talking like that, because if someone literally sets fire to a Scientology building, it wasn't me. My sister's fine.
You don't want to get dragged into any restraining order hearings, Natalie.
You'd come bail me out. I guess you don't get arrested for a restraining order.
I still think that Scientology is going to be left off as a topic, but I'm optimistic, and I'm a wishful thinker. So I hope you're right. I think I'm right. And no matter which way it goes, we're going to have some amazing follow-up chats about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like we need to, like, regularly have some chats just to rehash some of these, these topics that we both talk about on our channel, because we do. I mean, I like watching your content because you look at it differently from how I look at it sometimes. So I feel like there's two halves when they come together. Even though some things we'll look at differently, it doesn't mean we're completely opposed or in disagreement. And I also like that we can have those discussions about it. And, we're not coming to blows or, whatever, or hating on each other for it. Because I think the thing is, we realize is we agree more on these things. It's just, and then for me, sometimes it just depends on the time of day, how I feel about it or what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'm much more compassionate and feel, and other times I'm like, down with that bitch. It just depends.
Yeah. I mean, I think the funnest thing is, what's coming to mind is one of the reasons, early on, I was like, oh my God, all the former Scientologists need to get on YouTube, is because one of the things that makes these subjects fun, talking about them fun, riffing about them fun, is there's no right or wrong answer. There's different opinions based on different experiences and different perspectives. It's fun to hear different perspectives. When I say I think something's a certain way, that's just my opinion. I'm not even under any illusions that that's the bestest opinion. It just happens to be mine. It's the only one I'm capable of having. You know what I mean? So sometimes when people come on YouTube and get defensive because someone had an opinion that was different than theirs, it's like, everyone's going to have a different opinion. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Like, we're just here talking about what we think. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. And there's more than one way of seeing it. And I know, having escaped Scientology, my days of, it's only this way, there's only one way to do this, this is the only way to do this, the minute I start hearing that, I'm tuning somebody out, because that sounds culty. It sounds like black and white thinking. Why can't there be more than one way? The whole point of having different people on a place here like YouTube with different points of views and experiences in Scientology is to speak on it from their experience. I can only speak about Scientology from my experience or what I've seen with other people. And I'll often say on my channel, I'll get a question and I'll say, well, from my experience, this is what I experienced. Now, it doesn't mean that it wasn't different for somebody else. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that each of us have had our own experience in Scientology. And when we speak on that experience, it doesn't mean that this over here didn't happen or this over here didn't happen. It's just where we approaching it from is, and that's the thing we can talk most on. And I think that's why I know in doing my channel, what I love is because I recapped so much Scientology news, I'll intersperse with things on my personal story about it, but it's not the main topic of my channel. And selfishly, I like it that way. Why? Because it's
Yeah.
still hard to talk about the hard stuff sometimes. And I'll still do it, but I rather show up each day and do something that I try to make more fun and entertaining to balance out the complete and utter bullshit and horrificness of
Yeah.
Scientology and people who are victims of Scientology, who grew up in it, who joined as adults and got to have the joy of experiencing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what comes to mind is just I've recently randomly come across some of the chats, some of the late night chats on Fountain Avenue that Tori and Spanky and Mitch have been having. And it's interesting to me that there are times in those conversations where one or more of them clearly feel that they have an opinion that they want to express, but somehow it's dangerous to express it because it's different than how other people feel. And a
Mm,
particular environment has been created where it's been unsafe for people to say things that they truly believe and they truly feel just because it's different than what someone else feels or says. And I reject that. You know, like anyone should be able to say what they feel is true, but it would be helpful if they were saying it in a way where they weren't, you know, trying to speak for everyone. Like, you know what I mean? Like someone can say they feel something is true without saying, and it means someone else is completely wrong. You
yeah.
know, that's where the drama starts, is like, just say what's true for you in your experience
Mm,
without claiming that because that's true for you in your experience, it means someone else is wrong or someone else's experience is less valid. That's where it gets into the fighting and the drama.
yeah.
But I feel bad when I watch Tori and Mitch and Spanky talking about things and they're worried about being canceled by other former Scientologists for
Mm,
saying something wrong. I go, that means something's wrong.
mm,
That means something's wrong if that's how the environment feels. And I'm not okay with that.
yeah, I agree completely with you. I think I've had conversations with ex-Scientologists, some newer, some long time, who have a different point of view on certain aspects of Scientology that they feel was helpful for them. And I'm not going to take that away from them. If that's your reality or there's pieces of it, you still want to keep doing Dianetics auditing, like I don't get it, but whatever your thoughts on that are your thoughts on that. And the beauty of it is, even if I don't agree with that person or that is not my reality, the beauty of it is I can still talk to them about it and I want to know about it and I want to hear about it. And I'm with you on that. I do not agree at all with people should be able to have their own voice, their own experience. And it can be different. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't take away from, if I had a good day in Scientology, it doesn't take away from your bad day in Scientology, kind of a thing. It's like they can all exist at the same time. And we don't do justice to each other overall as a community if we can't take a step back and go, okay, I may not agree with this, but I'm not going to attack you and tear you down for it because that's where you're at and that's your point of view. And I think a lot of it has to do with the delivery in how someone decides to share something like that, how they choose to go about doing it.
Right. Totally. I can't help but wonder if some people think I'm being a hypocrite, that maybe I tried to cancel Mitch at some earlier point in time. And so if I can take 45 seconds to defend myself. I never personally worked with or knew David Miscavige. There's no part of me that feels that my opinions about David Miscavige are more correct, truer, or more valid than Mitch's. What I took issue with, and what I thought I had clearly communicated, but some people might feel differently, is that there are people who have known and worked with David Miscavige since they were teenagers. People like Mike Rinder, people like Tom DeVocht, people like Janice Grady, a host of other people. Those people, in my opinion, know the real, true David Miscavige, however you want to define that. It
Mhm.
was my opinion that when Mitch was talking about his beliefs and understandings about David Miscavige, that they were being presented in a way where his beliefs and opinions were more true, more valid, more correct than the Sea Org members who had known and worked with David Miscavige since they were teenagers. That's what I was taking issue with. I was inarticulate in one of my videos where I implied that Mitch not being a Sea Org member was disqualifying. What I really should have said was, if I had to measure it, him not having been a Sea Org member and having been a paid professional would make his impression of David Miscavige less qualifying, only because if someone was going to get the PR version of David Miscavige, I believe it would be the hired pro, not the Sea Org member who had known and worked with David Miscavige since they were teenagers. So, but it wasn't even meant to throw shade at Mitch. I never meant to cancel Mitch. I never meant to deplatform Mitch. And I certainly wasn't presenting my beliefs about David Miscavige as being more true than Mitch's. I was responding to how I felt Mitch was positioning his. And I'm sure Mitch would say that's never what I intended to do. And this is where, misunderstandings occur. So if anyone thought I'm being a hypocrite about trying to create an environment where, former Scientologists aren't free to safely say what they feel is true for them, I just wanted to address that. And maybe my explaining it this way again will be helpful to Mitch himself. I don't know, but that's why I just wanted to say those words.
Yeah. Yeah. I went back and I watched that video that you did with Mitch some time ago, because I've only been here on YouTube since December. So there's all kinds of things that I had missed, and was like mid-December, I think, is when I started my channel last year. And so I went back and I watched it, and that was my takeaway. I went, well, wait a minute. Actually, this ended really well. The end of the video. This is where I think the issues that start to come in, where it would appear that sometimes there's a problem with communicating and allowing people to have their opinion, is there's interjections. Often, we've talked about this recently. Well, I talked about it on my channel, and where I did a stream the other day, and we talked about that OSA program to start and spread rumors, and how the Office of Special Affairs is trained to not just spread rumors, but to spread a rumor and get other people to spread the rumor while not being detected as the source of it. They've been doing this for decades. So what happens if there's a perception of any type of a rift, the OSA trolls will come in and do things to exploit that disagreement and get it beefed up, and go into this chat and say, Aaron said this, then go into your chat and say, Mitch said this. And often they're not true. And I've learned this because I've seen it firsthand by watching actual videos and seeing some of what I call OSA troll comments, because the intention is to create conflict completely. And we know that OSA does, they're trained to it.
100%. And the truth is, we all think we're susceptible. We all think we're impervious to it.
Yeah.
Anyone who thinks they're impervious to it is lying to themselves. When David Miscavige succeeded in infiltrating the personal life and professional life of Janice Gilliam Grady, if I had been Janice Gilliam Grady, I would have thought they could never send someone in on me.
Yeah.
Because she lived it. She lived it and breathed it for so long. She worked directly with L. Ron Hubbard for so long. If I were in Janice Gilliam Grady's shoes, I would have thought there's no effing way they could successfully send someone in on me and I wouldn't know about it. None of us would ever truly know about it. That's why it works.
Yeah. Well, I think there are key signs to look for and recognize. And generally it comes in the terms of, basically if somebody tells you something, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you read something in a chat, it doesn't mean it's true. These things just can't be taken and run with. That is how they're spreading it. Is often these days, modern technology is doing it through chat and behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
It's fascinating. It's complete and utter bullshit, but I'm also fascinated by it because I can see it happening in real time in different chats and go, whoa, there's an OSA troll. There's an OSA troll. There is someone forwarding a line by OSA, which in Scientology, they're called enemy lines. And they come up with these enemy lines, these things that are said about somebody to discredit them as an individual or discredit their business or their abilities some way, because then you won't listen to what they have to say. That's the whole game. Scientology cannot win against us because we're telling the truth. The only thing Scientology can do is to try to discredit us.
Here's a perfect example. Perfect example. You've got people running around right now saying with 100% confidence that the SPTV Foundation is not actually a nonprofit organization. It's not a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit, and that means it's set up only to benefit its own members. This is a pure fiction. This is a pure lie. And you've got people running around saying this like they know it for a fact. Yeah, I'm reminded, I'm going to go on a tangent for a moment here. I used to be a huge fan of a YouTube channel called Today I Found Out with a host named Simon Whistler. And I was such a fan of these videos. He would do short little, I wouldn't want to call him a deep dive, but it was short. So how could it really be a deep dive? So, but short little deep dives into, you know, esoteric subjects that were just fascinating. And it never occurred to me that it was mostly bullshit until he did a subject about Scientology. He did a video about Scientology. And I was like, oh, fuck, this guy doesn't, someone's just writing, someone's doing a half-assed, putting a script together, and he's great. He's a great delivery. He's very charismatic. He's very funny. He's got a great voice. And it's easy to go, well, this must be true because it's in a video and nobody would just put bullshit into a video. Once I watched his Scientology video, I couldn't watch anything else again. Okay, so what's the point of that analogy? It's so easy to believe that when someone says something on the internet with confidence, that's got to be true or they wouldn't be saying that. To see people say something about our foundation that we already know to be completely false is like, oh, I can't believe anything these assholes say. They'll say anything. And they'll say it with such confidence, but they have no idea what they're talking about. And they should be smart enough to know that they don't know, but they do the opposite. They run around like it's already been proven in a court of law. It's verified. They know it for a fact. They have no effing clue what they're talking about. And they run around saying these things like it's a fact. So we've seen it with our own eyes. We've seen the OSA playbook at work here. Start a rumor, spread a rumor to someone else, get them to spread a rumor to someone else. And eventually it looks like it's a fact. Yeah. And we've seen it. We've seen this happening.
Yeah. And it also will look like or give the impression that everyone's talking about it. All the people think that is another trick and tool is to throw in those general terms and generalities when really, because those emotions, it's even though, you know, love is the stronger emotion and frequency and vibration, those emotions of fear and anger and insecurity tend to be quicker to turn on for people. And that's what gets exploited by Scientology and the Office of Special Affairs to create this fear and anxiety or this lack or this scarcity but the thing is, it's like anybody who has studied Scientology, and this is why I think it's so important that we share and make known the tactics that the Office of Special Affairs is actually trained in doing and educate the public on it so that when they see it, because what Scientology does is they will ride a wave they see and exploit it. But if you don't allow yourself to be exploited, like you don't have to take the bait either. It's like you can say whatever you want to say. It doesn't change. I'm going to go on with my day. I'm still going to do my thing no matter what. It doesn't have an effect that way. And it also is not something that is true general to it. It really is a small number of people and not the majority. And it gets to the point where it's like, what do you can spend all this time refuting ridiculous claims by a vocal minority that is being fueled by Scientology, when overall the vast majority of people don't believe that. They don't take that on as truth. And it becomes laughable because we're over here like board members can't even benefit. Like I could not apply for a grant to the foundation because I'm on the board. Like there's no, I think I even teased you about it once. Like,
no, but they see you on it. They see you come visiting Clearwater and it's like, oh my God, I bet the foundation paid for that. Or they see us going out on a boat. They're like, oh my God, they must be using foundation money to be on a boat. It's like, it's insanity. And while we're debunking myths, I got to be honest, it's not just OSA. I mean, there are people who are supposed to be friends of ours, but very obviously are not, running around spreading the rumor that people who are getting financial help from the foundation are being paid out of my personal checking account. This is so false. There's no evidence of this. It can be easily disproved. The people spreading these rumors never even came to us and asked us if this was true or to prove that it wasn't true. And so it's not just OSA. But I got to tell you, when these things pop up, it is OSA who will signal boost it and amplify it. Like, this is a perfect example. It's 100% false. It's easily provable false. And the people spreading the rumor never even spoke to you, spoke to me, asked us about it, asked for any documentation. And yet that rumor is now going around. Oh, the foundation's a scam. They don't have an EIN number. Totally false. We have an EIN number. You can't open a bank account without an EIN number. Okay. We have an EIN. No one's getting the EIN number until our 501c3 status is officially approved. Okay. So take a hike. So anyway, while we're debunking myths, I just wanted to address that one as well.
Yeah, that was it. That was a good one. Do we got any questions? Should we address any questions?
There's a lot of questions. Oh, that's right. I'm in the driver's seat here, aren't I? Sorry. I'm like, what are you waiting for, Natalie?
Get off your ass, Levin.
So let's see. Great gig in the sky. Thank you for becoming a member. Although, honestly, I can't tell if it's my channel or your channel because we're combined on this, right?
Yeah, I can't tell either.
Sir Crepidus gifted someone 5 channel membership. Thank you.
Growing up in Scientology. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, instead of trying to bring up everything that was starred, let me look for actual questions that we might be able to address. Or some particularly interesting ones. Sovereign Brehan. I think SPTV has done what it meant to do, which is to keep the spotlight on what's going on. Everyone is going to become aware in their own timeline, but there's nothing wrong with lifting sails. Yeah, I like that.
I think so too. I mean, in terms of myth busting as well, I think it's a good, not myth busting, but to clarify, it's with the foundation. But the SPT Foundation was created with the intention to help people who have left Scientology get back on their feet. There's been needs where it's been for therapy, for emergency housing, for a multitude of different things for different people. Each individual situation for somebody leaving Scientology is so different and nuanced that is why we have a board to look at all of the information and look at the resources that we have, look at the need that we have, and the way that we can be stewards of money that all of you have donated to help people who've been leaving Scientology. And that is the focus. It's on people who are leaving Scientology, left Scientology. Sometimes it can take even years to even get to where you realize, or you're okay with therapy. We're seeing a professional when you've left Scientology. Sometimes you leave Scientology and you've told no one, and you have a job. No one even knows about your past. I mean, I've heard situations where sometimes even with a significant other didn't know that person's past in Scientology. Everybody walks their own path differently. And that is a reason why we can talk in general terms about the type of services that we provide, but you're never going to get us getting too much into the specifics, because many of the people who were vulnerable enough to come to this foundation and ask for help after leaving a human trafficking cult don't want that out there. And some of them are not fully out from under the control or influence of maybe family members or even bosses that are still connected in Scientology. And even if they aren't, it's really personal. These are people not just who have needs, but they're financial needs. And that's difficult to ask for that help sometimes and be that vulnerable. And I just wanted to say that is often why we'll speak in general terms, but our role, our desire in doing this and creating this foundation to help people who've left Scientology is to help them. Not to talk about them, not to, pat ourselves on the back about it. It's to help those individuals is what matters. And it's nuanced. These are people who've left a human trafficking cult. They don't want to necessarily talk about it or share about it or have their private financial situation shown to the world or have people know that about them. There's just so much that goes into it. This is different from, you have other nonprofits or many charities who work in cancer research or helping families who are battling cancer. And even sometimes then they might not want to talk about it. But in ways I feel like it's almost easier to. But someone who's left Scientology, I would say, I mean, you tell me what you think. I think 9 out of 10 don't want to publicly talk about it, especially when they're in that vulnerable moment of seeking this help. And then they still need to get through the therapy or the whatever it is, or the emergency housing.
I totally agree with you 100%. And also you want to talk about OSA starting rumors or trying to enact its programs to turn people against each other and divide and conquer. Who in the world would ever say that if the SPTV Foundation isn't transparent about who the money is going to and for what, that it's a fraud?
That would be something Scientology would say.
That is insanity. Total insanity. That's exactly what OSA would say.
Yeah. Of course they want to know who we're helping. Yeah. Of course they'd want to know that.
Yeah.
OSA, Scientology.
Right. Exactly. And also knowing that the foundations were created to help people leave Scientology. Who in the world would ever say that what the funds donated to the SPTV Foundation should really go to is paying for protesters' legal bills? That is insane. That is absolutely insane for anyone to try to turn the protester community against former Scientologists and or the SPTV Foundation by saying, if the funds, if the board isn't helping protesters pay for their legal bills, then we're not actually accomplishing the purpose of the foundation. That is pure OSA style horse shit. And anyone out there supporting that stuff, that's what you're supporting. You're supporting OSA bullshit.
Yeah, because who would want us to divert funds away from helping people who've left a human trafficking cult? The human trafficking cult. That's who. They don't want us helping these people, because you know what happens when you help people who've left a place like this? They get stronger. And you know what happens when they get stronger? They're more willing to talk about it. And one thing Scientology doesn't want, they destroy people as they're walking out the door. The level of mental and spiritual abuse that's heaped on people trying to leave Scientology is done with intention. It is done to shut them down so they never speak about it. It's intentionally done to them. Many of them are broken, and it still can take a while for them to feel comfortable enough to actually try to get that help. And then even longer to get to the point where they'd be able to talk about it. And God bless the people who are willing to do that. In fact, I've got 2 interviews this week, later in the week, with ex-Scientologists who've never spoken out before. Awesome. And I'm hearing so much more from people who left a long time ago even. And by long time ago, I mean like more than 5 years, who are now willing. Some who left 20 years ago. And now, only now, it took 20 years to get to the point where they can share their story, and they're willing to do it publicly. And do you know why they're willing to do it? Because that awareness of what this cult does, the awareness of what we're trying to do with the SPTV Foundation to help people who've left it, is worth it to them. They want to be able to do that and help. It's the same reason why I decided to be vocal again about Scientology. So many people who spoke out helped me when I left, helped me feel stronger in my decision that I was making the right choice. So if I'm in a position where I can do that as well, then I want to do that. And because I've come far enough in my healing and reestablishing my fucking life, I can help other people. I have more bandwidth.
Brilliant.
It just takes time.
Totally brilliant. I can't wait for your interviews, by the way. Sounds exciting.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. I'm so excited too. I just, and it's so interesting because when somebody comes to me and wanting to share their story, I'm initially like, okay, you don't need to do this. I want to share your story, and it's so great because a lot of people who want to do that, they've been watching and they've been seeing the support of so many people, never in Scientology, but all in on bringing down the cult. And it's going to be the large number of people never in Scientology that are going to end Scientology, because they're the ones elevating the voices of the victims, of people who will share their stories of what we're doing. But we don't have the numbers. just with ex-Scientologists. Having this community, it is helping people leave Scientology because they're watching it on YouTube and they're reading the comments. And that gives the importance more for them to see and be able to understand that, you know, they're not going to be attacked when they do want to speak out about it.
Exactly. Exactly. The fact that there is an amazing cooperative effort between former Scientologists and people who've never been in Scientology towards a positive goal is the beauty of what we're doing, which makes the contrast so offensive. When you have people who come into the scene, who direct their energies into turning people against each other, turning protesters against non-protesters, turning people against former Scientologists, like people who are pushing this narrative that we who collectively call ourselves SPTV, that what we're really supposed to be for is just to help promote protester channels. And that if we're not promoting protester channels or protesting ourselves, we're not really here for a real reason, is so divisive and offensive that I don't know. It's just so toxic to what we're actually here for that I'm just calling it out because it goes right into that OSA category of behavior. Who would come onto the scene just to create division? Who would do that? OSA would do that. OSA would do that. And if you think that people behaving that way are not being influenced by OSA or cheerleaded by OSA or worked up by OSA, then you don't know how OSA works.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying I might be talking about this too long. It's why I have so little patience. It's why I have a zero tolerance. It's why I've got a zero tolerance policy on it. Anyone who's doing that doesn't just need a pep talk to be like, hey, that's not nice. You shouldn't do that. People who are doing that are doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
That's how I feel.
It's intentional. And I do believe, and the thing is, it's not even the reality. I've done over 600 videos highlighting the protests and protesters. I've shared multiple, ways to help them in the past and try to get that message out too of what they're doing. I do it on a daily basis. I end up covering some level of what's going on. The protest of Scientology is happening worldwide. It's an international thing. There are things happening in Denmark. There's some stuff just popping up in Norway. You look at what's happening in Chicago and Kansas City and the crew in Clearwater. There are so many other different places where this is popping up. Boston, New York, Seattle, Portland. And there will be times when people need to take a break from it. And it's something that last year, this recent round started with William Good, and it has expanded and grown. And I've had multiple people from the protest community on my channel. I've gone to visit them. That's why I went to Kansas City to meet with the people protesting Scientology at the org. I wanted to get to know them. I wanted to hear their stories, and I wanted to protest myself in Kansas City. We do support that. We support the protest community that wants to focus on bringing Scientology down. We support helping the protest community that wants to bring Scientology down completely.
Yeah.
What we don't support is tearing, anybody, whether you're a protester, an ex-Scientologist, whatever, tearing each other down that way.
Yeah.
Because there's no one way. There's no one way. The only way to bring down Scientology is on this topic. No, because many of us, our experiences, our battle scars are from different things that happened to us in Scientology. And it is okay to talk about all of it. And you know who doesn't want us talking about all of it? Scientology.
100%. We got Jenna Miscavige in the chat. Hi, Jenna. Jenna says, it's very hard to speak out as a Scientologist. When people like the Jane Does do, and you take part in silencing them, like Emily Armstrong did, that's where I lose empathy and feel that she has a responsibility to speak up.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well said, Jenna.
Irina Posner says, for people like me, leaving Scientology was throwing your life away. It might have been a shitty life, but that was the one life you had. It is different for Emily. She has a life outside of Scientology. That is true. It is true. Yes, there's a part of her life that is in Scientology, but it is different. She's not throwing everyone and everything she's ever known away.
Yeah.
By speaking out. A lot of us literally did practically have to do do that, right? Well, this isn't really fair or true, but I guess I'll bring it up just so we can respond to it. Natalie, you're not considering that Emily went to court to support Danny Masterson and issued a lame apology, not mentioning his name or his victims.
I'm pretty sure I said exactly that. I said exactly that she needs to address specifically Danny Masterson and his victims. But maybe that was early on when we first started talking about it, because you know what I'm saying? The comments come in early.
That's true. That was from an hour ago.
Yeah, but I did make that point, and I do appreciate you saying that.
Mercedes Rivera says, Emily is Scientology's perfect mouthpiece and tool. She kind of is. Now, to be fair, she's not out there promoting Scientology. Like, that is an accurate statement.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, if she were, Lord help us all. You know what I mean? Zoo Renard, people forgive way too much stuff in the name of fame. So many celebrities are known a-holes, but they're still famous. Okay, let's see. Izzy B. My Linkin Park YouTube chat posts continue to be deleted. Clearly, there's a deliberate attempt to silence this topic. I've watched a number of 1- and 2-year-old interviews. Emily Armstrong states that her mom let her drop out of school at 14. Even that is actually a false statement. She never went to school. Like that's Emily trying to tell a relatable story that she went to school and then dropped out, like she was Mark Zuckerberg or something.
Yeah.
No, she didn't go to school. She went to a Scientology child prison labor camp.
Which I think she called it boarding school.
Yes. Because she's a Scientologist.
Yeah, and we all learned how to do that. We had to learn to spin the reality of what life was like for us in Scientology or in the Sea organization to make it acceptable and palatable. And sometimes it's not just about protecting Scientology. That is the biggest thing as a Scientologist, is protect Scientology. Sometimes it's about not wanting to admit their shame for some in that as well. And I don't know that that's her case, but I'm saying in some situations to come from that, because I've talked to people who don't share with people that they were in Scientology because they feel shame and embarrassment about it. And then I used to think like, oh man, like what's wrong with me that I have no shame or embarrassment about it? I just feel like it's just part of it. And I didn't feel that it was the weirdest thing about me. So I was always willing to talk about it, because hearing from people never in Scientology, how they see Scientology and what they think about it, is one of the biggest things that has helped with my healing. And in the short time I've been here on YouTube, connecting with so many people never in Scientology about it and freely speaking about it, even more so. And I just hope that everybody out there, obviously our ex-Scientology friends, but the sheer number of people never in Scientology who are here for this and working together to expose this just blows my mind.
Absolutely. Okay. Superstorm Day says, Aaron, you've been excellent on this topic. You've made it clear what your issue is. Thank you. Just patting myself on the back, bringing that one up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Saul Goodman, YT. Anyone crying that anyone is harassing Emily, then they shouldn't talk about Tom Cruise. They're both public figures and in Scientology. I feel like we might have discussed if there's a difference between these two things. I think your point was Tom Cruise has very, very publicly promoted and recruited for Scientology, whereas Emily has not.
Yes.
Right. I'm still here says, my problem with Emily is that she supported a serial rapist. She harassed victims, yet this horrid behavior was fluffed over with a piss poor apology. She has the protection of Scientology and Linkin Park fans. Totally. Irina Posner says, Emily could have pulled a Catherine Bell. Thing is, even Catherine Bell didn't go out to support Danny Masterson. And Catherine absolutely knew Danny. I saw them talk myself at events. Bada bang. There you go. Thank you for that. And SPTV fan, are there any pictures from the Yellow Shorts days?
Oh yeah, there is. Right? Wasn't that the one you showed of Jeff?
Yeah.
You and Jeff?
Will, if I can remember, I'll dig up the photo and post it to my community tab.
I will remind him.
There you go. Lipstain Lover says, Natalie, did you know Mary McGrath?
Mary Gaiman? Was McGrath her maiden name and she became Mary Gaiman? Or is Mary McGrath some, maybe Lipstain, tell me like in what, give me a state, because my Scientology took me from Hawaii to Los Angeles to Seattle to Minnesota, Clearwater, and Los Angeles. And I don't know if Mary, God, that sounds familiar. It really does sound familiar, but I don't know if it's the maiden name of the Mary Gaiman, Neil Gaiman's ex-wife, was the executive director, probably may even still be on staff here in the Twin Cities. I don't know. When I was still in Scientology when they were getting their divorce. In fact, it was about when I was leaving, I think.
Yeah. Great Gig in the Sky says, SPTV creators are not here to serve protesters facing the consequences of their choice to protest. Certain folks need to hear that. Yeah, I got to tell you, I've always been proud to support the protesters. I've always been proud to raise funds for legal representation. Obviously, I haven't done it in every case, but in many, many cases, I've been leading the charge on that. What really throws me for a loop is people who act like they are owed something. That's crazy. Do you know who's had to probably spend the most money on legal representation? William Good, Streets LA, the Good Father himself. Do you know who's never once asked us to help him raise those funds? William Good has never once asked. And the entitlement that certain people have demonstrated publicly, saying that like our job is actually to raise money for people, and who want to publicly try to blame, shame, and attack us for running a sham foundation that's not really a nonprofit, and it's all a scam, and then ask me for help raising money. I mean, like, that's the craziest thing I could even imagine. I don't owe anybody anything. I've got a YouTube channel. I use my channel to expose Scientology every single day. I use my channel to lift up other voices and promote other channels as well. I've used my channel to support protesters and everything, but I do that because I want to, not because it's my job. So when people want to attack me personally, say that there was one person last week who literally said, there's no way to explain how I was ever professionally successful after leaving Scientology.
You and me. It was you and me both.
Both of us. And therefore, we must be secretly on the payroll of Scientology. And then the next day, asked us to help them raise funds for a lawyer because they, stupidly damaged Scientology property, which has nothing to do with protesting whatsoever. And it's our job to help him raise money for a lawyer. Like, I got to tell you, these people are doing OSA's job for them. And if the protester community wants to continue to get the support that I and many others have been very happy to give, it might be wise to make it very clear that these instigators are not welcome in the protest community. I mean, that's just a personal statement from me, because when I see people who are creating havoc and conflict like this, when I see them being embraced by a group, it makes me not want to support that group, because I don't have to support anybody. I can just keep doing my videos on my own channel all day long. That's what I did for the first year and a half. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's just, go ahead.
Even with the foundation, it's just as stewards of that, of that money, people donated money to the SPTV Foundation to help people leaving Scientology. So that is what, that is the expectation, is that money too goes towards helping people who left Scientology, who've been involved in that. It would be, in my mind, unethical to use that in a different way for legal fees for protest. The other thing, let's not forget that Scientology's tactic, one of the biggest tactics of Scientology, is to tie people up legally. They want to get you in court and keep you mired down in that. And they can play that game all day, every day, all day. They have the money to do it. It is nothing to them. They're not doing it to win. They're not doing these things to win. They're doing it to distract and tie up your attention and resources. And of course, Scientology will like nothing more than the people we do have in this community to put their resources towards legal fees, which, when we can help with that as individuals, help with that. If that's something you feel moved to help with, then help with that. But to collect money for a foundation to say we're going to help people leaving Scientology, that's a different situation. But it doesn't mean we can't still, in the greater community, how can we work together? what can we do, in raising awareness or within that community if you need help with that. But the focus can't come off of Scientology and dealing with and exposing Scientology. Otherwise, you're literally, like, to your point, you're doing OSA's job. Now the attention is over here on a legal battle, which does need to be done and finished, but it shouldn't be the focus, because now the attention's not on Scientology. And that
Yeah.
is literally the Office of Special Affairs' job, is to get us to stop talking about Scientology and go off onto other things. And that's part of why we feel strongly too, or I can speak for myself, to hold that line. And that's why you'll know on my channel, when I do the recaps, I don't get into personality disputes or any type of drama like that. My focus is and will always be on exposing Scientology, because that's what I'm here to do. And I have the experience in the past and now to recognize an OSA op when I see one, or a distraction tactic. And here's the thing, a lot of people who the Office of Special Affairs, their job is to get people to do the work for them, to get them to do the dirty work for them. And oftentimes these people are victims themselves, in that they don't know they're being gaslit or fed information that is actually with the intention of discrediting people speaking about Scientology. They don't sometimes actually know or recognize that, which we get. And that's why I think it's important for us to share this, and why I want to share more of the actual OSA training to help people understand, so they can spot it and recognize it and not take your eye off of the goal, which is exposing Scientology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hot advice straight off the press. Don't show up on the scene, make physical contact with Scientologists, destroy Scientology property, and then ask us to ask our audience to give you money. Hot tip. That's my hot tip for the day. Speaking for myself. Okay. We got Eric Rader in the chat. Excellent. Excellent to see you here, Eric. Always good to see you.
I love Eric's been doing some fun things with doing sign tech, getting flyers up. They get ripped down. Eric Rader is back out there putting them back up. And he has the whole incineration nation behind him now. I just love what he's doing.
I've been getting emails. I haven't even forwarded them to Eric, but I've been getting emails from people around LA County, sending me photos of the flyers that he's, put up on these phone poles, and been like, oh my God, I just saw this. It seems like, people are the word's starting to get out. So It's so funny to see it come full circle like that.
One man making such a big difference.
Yeah. Lydia Von Stretchclaw. I love Simon Whistler. The issue is he reads what other people send him. I know he's not a bad guy, but once I realized the videos weren't everything they're cracked up to be, I just couldn't bring myself to keep watching the videos. Abraham Orich. Excellent. Always good to see you, Abraham. As a Florida resident, you do not have to include your EIN number on Sunbiz. It is not mandatory. It's true, but let me give an even better explanation for why there's no EIN number on the state registration paperwork for the SPTV Foundation. An EIN number, an employer identification number, is like a social security number for a business. Business registrations are done at the state level. EINs are assigned by the IRS. You cannot ask for an EIN until you actually have an entity for which to ask for the EIN. So you have to first create the LLC on the state website. Once it's created, you then go to the IRS and say, can I have an EIN number? And that takes 5 minutes. So your initial paperwork, business paperwork with the state only gets updated once a year. You only have to do an update once a year. So your initial filing is never going to have an EIN. And these people are too stupid to know that they might not know what they don't know. And they maybe shouldn't run around claiming things for a fact that they've never bothered to investigate. Actually, I'll tell you what's even funnier. I have seen people in these forums where these claims are being made. I have seen these people be corrected with the actual true information and just choose not to believe it.
Yeah.
So that's where you go, it's OSA. It's OSA. Okay. So by the way, so the next updated paperwork would of course have the EIN. but again, Abraham's point is, even if it doesn't, it's not a legal issue. You don't need it. You don't need, no one needs to know the EIN. It's not relevant to anything. But anyway, it's okay.
Yeah. Can you answer this question, Aaron, about clarifying?
Right. So in the state of Florida, there is no difference. The state of Florida's there's no difference between a nonprofit and a not-for-profit. The words are used interchangeably by the state of Florida. But in some states, or perhaps in the IRS definitions, a nonprofit exists to help members of the community, essentially anyone that is within the scope of who the nonprofit says they're there to help. A not-for-profit exists to help its own members. Now you go, members, what does that mean? A good example would be a VFW. Okay, so a VFW doesn't exist for the purpose to help anyone in society. You have to become a member of the VFW. And it then it exists to serve its members. It's a small difference. So the people who run around saying, we have breaking news, we've discovered the SPTV Foundation only exists to help its members. Here's where they're not even understanding their own lie. The SPTV Foundation doesn't have members. And when a not-for-profit says it exists to help its members, that doesn't mean it's board members. That means the organization creates a membership where people can join the organization. People becoming a member of your local VFW are not on the board of the VFW. So the people spreading this lie don't even actually truly understand the lie that they're trying to spread. It's stupid on multiple levels, but that's the answer to this thing. In the state of Florida, when you go to apply for nonprofit status, they do not differentiate between the words nonprofit and not-for-profit. It's a moot point. And so, yeah, that is the answer to the question, though.
Thank you.
Ben Bacon Bits says, a birdie told me that Lori Plays wants to know what you call the color of that shirt. I guess this is directed at you, Natalie, because this is black.
Purple.
There you go. I mean, we're going deep here. Unstoppable SPs. The only purpose of Scientology is to destroy. Alrighty. Matt White, has anyone told Aaron about the Cards Against Scientology game?
What? Is it like Cards Against Humanity? Because I love that game.
Yeah, I haven't heard of this, Matt. Email me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com and let me know what the dealio is, because maybe if it's something that we can play in a live stream, then maybe we could do that.
Yeah, in a live stream, or we can play it too when I'm in Florida.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Open My Eyes, aka Mindy on Fire. It is so gross to add someone in Scientology to sing those songs. Okay, the Linkin Park songs. If they believe in Scientology, it feels manipulative and disrespectful. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is why fans care about this, at least for the ones who do. And the other one's a little too spicy. I don't think I'm going to bring up that last one. But so that's it, folks. This has been a lot of fun, Natalie. Anything else we want to say? Anything else you'd like to anything you would care to say or ask before we end this live stream?
I would like people to have similar gains to mine. Yeah, and we'll do it again. There's so many great topics, and yeah, I just there's just so much. We could talk for hours. We'll do it again.
All right, this has been a blast, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,